Welcome to Muscles and Magic the Gathering. Now, first things first, I am the Muscles. I am Bobby Maximus. These cards, Magic the Gathering. Listen, I've been playing Magic the Gathering for 31 years. It's been an enormous, a gigantic passion in my life. I actually started towards the tail end of Unlimited. That's how long I've been playing. And one of my favorite things to do with Magic the Gathering cards is collect. I used to collect complete sets. Recently, though, I've become completely obsessed, and I mean completely obsessed with Commander. Currently, I have 57 different Commander decks, and today we are going to talk budget goblins, all right? Now, I gotta put an asterisk beside the word budget. My number one goblin deck, which is based off Krenko, is worth $1,300. It's a bracket 4 ultra competitive deck. This deck right here comes in at a low budget, $630. I'm laughing because there's no world except in Bobby Maximus's world that a $600 deck would be a budget deck. But I've always collected goblins, are one of my favorite tribal kinfolk typal groups in Magic the Gathering. I had a bunch of extra goblins, and I wanted to build a goblin deck that was different than my Krenko deck, all right? If you do follow my series, you have seen the Krenko deck. You are going to see some of the same cards, and I'll highlight those as we go throughout, because when you're building a goblin deck, just off the top of my head, you absolutely need a goblin wizard, right? You're going to need a goblin matron. You're going to need a goblin lotus. So some of the cards are going to be similar, but there are some pretty big differences between the two decks. The first difference that I want to highlight, and we might as well just start the show right there, is the commander. Now, this commander is Muxus Goblin Grandee. And you can see it right here. It's a beautiful altar that a friend of mine made. And when Muxus Goblin Grandee enters the battlefield, reveal the top 6 cards of your library. Put all goblin creature cards with converted mana cost 5 or less from among them onto the battlefield, basically all your goblins, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Whenever Muxus attacks, it gets +1/+1 until the end of turn for each other goblin you control. So what are we going to do? We're going to flood the board with goblins, and we're going to pump Muxus up and make it this giant. You ever heard of the elf ball? We are making a goblin ball, all right? So that is my commander. Different than Krenko, and sometimes I just like breaking this deck out, because everyone knows when you play goblins, you're going to have Krenko as your commander. I like to sub this in and use this card. It's just a lot of fun, adds variety to the game. And again, it allowed me to feature some of the cards I didn't have in my Krenko deck. Now, speaking of some cards I didn't have in my Krenko deck, Daretti Scrap Savant. There's a planeswalker here. Why? Because Daretti is a goblin. This planeswalker, the +2 ability, discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. Card draw in Commander is a huge competitive edge. If you're going to build a competitive Commander deck, pay attention to card draw. That card does this. The -2 ability, sacrifice an artifact. If you do, return target artifact card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And then the final ability, oh, and by the way, there's a bunch of artifacts in this deck, so we're going to be able to use that ability a lot. And then the final ability, you get an emblem with. Whenever an artifact is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return that card to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. So because of this, we put a lot of artifacts in this deck. Another difference between this and my Krenko deck. And by the way, I keep talking about this Krenko deck. I will put, if you're new to the show, I will put a link to that in my show notes. So that is my planeswalker. Now let's talk about our creatures. Now, the first one, not a goblin, but you need it in a goblin deck if you're going to be competitive. And I just really, really love the card. Purpurus, God of the Forge. Indestructible. And as long as your devotion to red is less than 5, Purpurus isn't a creature. Whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, Purpurus deals 2 damage to each opponent. If you pay 3, one of them being red, creatures you control get +1/+0 until the end of turn. Because we are going to be making a horde of goblins with this deck, this ability, whenever another creature enters the battlefield under control, Purpurus deals 2 damage to each opponent, is going to be huge. Next up, an actual goblin, the Battlecry Goblin. Tap 2 mana, one of them being red. Goblins you control get a +1/+0 and gain haste until the end of turn. Pack Tactics. I love this. Whenever Battle Cry Goblin attacks, if you attack with creatures with total power 6 or greater this combat, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. We have Squee the Immortal. You may cast Squee the Immortal from your graveyard or from exile. The Siege Gang Commander, another great way to make goblin tokens when it enters the battlefield. Put 3 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield. And if you pay 2 mana, one of them being red, sacrifice a goblin. Siege Gang Commander deals 2 damage to target creature or player. The Rindvelt Horde Master. Other goblins you control get +1/+1. Whenever Rindvelt Horde Master or another goblin you control dies, exile the top card of your library. If it's a goblin creature card, you may cast that card until the end of turn. Beautiful printing of the Legion War Boss. Mentor. At the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. That token gains haste until the end of turn. It attacks this combat if able. The Goblin Rabble Master. Other goblin creatures you control attack each turn if able. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a 1/1 red goblin creature token with haste onto the battlefield. Whenever Goblin Rabble Master attacks, it gets +1/+0 until the end of turn for each other attacking goblin. Another Squee, famous goblin, legendary goblin, haste. Whenever Squee Dubious Monarch attacks, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token that's tapped and attacking. Did I mention we're going to make just a horde of goblins with this deck? You may cast Squee Dubious Monarch from your graveyard by paying 3 and then a red mana and exiling 4 other cards from your graveyard rather than paying its mana cost. Conspicuous Snoop. Play with the top card of your library revealed. You may cast goblin spells from the top of your library. And as long as the top card of your library is a goblin card, Conspicuous Snoop has all activate abilities of that card. Great goblin card right there. Legion Loyalist. I was going to say Legion War Boss, but it's a Legion Loyalist. Haste and Battalion. Whenever Legion Loyalist and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control gain first strike and trample. You have any idea how well that works with a giant bloated Muxus? It's insane. They get the first strike and trample until the end of the turn. It can't be blocked by creature tokens this turn. Oh, banned card. But we play with banned cards around here. I do not subscribe to. I do not believe in the propaganda of the ban list. All cards need to get unbanned. At my table, we do not respect, nor do we play the ban list. All cards are welcome. We are not oppressive. We are not judgmental. So welcome. Enter the Dockside Extortionist, one of the greatest goblins of all time, if not the greatest goblin of all time. When Dockside Extortionist enters the battlefield, create X treasure tokens where X is the number of artifacts and enchantments your opponents control. The Sear Slicer Goblin. Raid. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a 1/1 red goblin creature token. You know, we might as well go there. We have an illegal card. People are crying already. They're mad. They're salty. That card's oppressive. Bobby Maximus, whatever. You want to see an oppressive card? Magus of the Moon. Non-basic lands are mountains. Now, you can't tell me this card is legal, but the Dockside is banned. So here we go. You open the door. We are kicking it over. We are kicking it in. We're busting right through. The Goblin Piledriver. By the way, that's not the only mass land in all card I have in here. Trust me on that. The Goblin Piledriver. Protection from blue. Whenever Goblin Piledriver attacks, gets +2/+0 till end of turn for each other attacking goblin. You want to make some tokens? Here we go. The other commander, Krenko Mob Boss. Put X 1/1 red goblin creature tokens onto the battlefield where X is the number of goblins you control. All the tokens. Mob Catcher. Great card for a goblin deck. Search your library for a goblin card and put that card into play, then shuffle your library. Nice little goblin tutor. I talked about card draw. Tutors are also immense value in a commander deck, so there we go. The Goblin Chieftain. Haste. Other goblin creatures you control get +1/+1 and have haste. The Hobgoblin Bandit Lord. Monster card. Other goblins you control get +1/+1. Tap a red mana. Hobgoblin Bandit Lord deals damage equal to the number of goblins that entered the battlefield under your control this turn to any target. Monstrous with Krenko the Mob Boss. The Goblin King. All goblins in play get Mountain Walking +1/+1. Well, this card remains in play. That's great to work with Magus of the Moon. Trust me on that. One goblin card that you absolutely need to have. It's on the reserve list. It's only going to go up in value, so get your copy now. The Goblin Wizard. You tap it, take a goblin from your hand and put it directly into play. Treat this goblin as if it were just summoned, and then you pay 1 red mana. Target goblin gains protection from white until the end of turn. Great card. Trust me, get it now. Goblin Chirurgeon. Sacrifice a goblin to regenerate a target creature. The Goblin Sharpshooter. We have all the goblins in this deck. Goblin Sharpshooter doesn't untap during your tap step. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, untap Goblin Sharpshooter. Goblin Sharpshooter, if you tap, deals 1 damage to target creature or player. The Warren Instigator, another great goblin, double strike. Whenever Warren Instigator deals damage to an opponent, you may put a goblin creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. The Goblin Recruiter, you need this in a goblin deck if you're going to play goblins. When Goblin Recruiter comes into play, search your library for any number of goblin cards, reveal them to all players, shuffle your library, then put the revealed cards on top in any order. Really, really works with Muxus as well. Goblin Matron. When Goblin Matron comes into play, you search your library for a goblin card. If you do, reveal that card, put it into your hand, shuffle your library. Another goblin tutor, super important. Goblin Lackey. When it deals damage to a player, you choose a goblin in your hand, put that goblin into play. Oh, another tutor-type card, Imperial Recruiter. It enters the library, search your library for a creature card with power 2 or less. There's a bunch of goblins that fall into that category in this deck. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. And then, of course, we have Kiki Jiki. Haste. Put a token that's a copy of target non-legendary creature you control into the battlefield. That token has haste. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. There are our goblin creatures, all right? Tremendous array of goblins. We actually have in this deck 29 total creatures. Most of them are goblins. And I mentioned earlier, we have a bunch of artifacts in this deck to work with already. And I like artifacts. I like building artifact decks. So let's go over those next. The Swift Foot Boots. You know what you want to do? You want to be able to protect Muxus to turn him into a giant goblin ball. So the Swift Foot Boots, piece of commander protection. You need that in your deck, trust me. Eldrazi Monument. One of the weaknesses of goblins is they don't fly. So let's make them all flying and give them indestructible. And the sacrifice cost, we're going to have so many goblin tokens, it's not going to matter. So Eldrazi Monument. The Staff of Domination, all kinds of insane combos in a goblin deck that you can use, especially with Krenko. Untap the Staff of Domination for 1. For 2, you gain 1 life. For 3, you untap target creature. For 4, you tap target creature. And for 5, you tap and draw a card. Door of Destinies, a little bit of a goblin anthem here. Choose a creature type, goblins. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on the Door of Destinies. Creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on the Door of Destinies. Jeweled Lotus, tremendous mana ramp card. Again, don't at me about illegal cards. Coat of Arms, massive goblin bump. Each creature gets +1/+1 for each other creature in play that shares a creature. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't generally like symmetrical creature bumps, right? If I'm playing against elves, the elf opponent is going to get the same bump. However, with goblins, I'm okay using the Coat of Arms because generally I'm going to have more goblins than whatever you have, all right? Skull Clamp, arguably the greatest card draw engine of all time. Card draw is massive in Commander. We talked about that. This card really should be illegal. Like, if you want to get into the nuts and bolts of what should be banned and what shouldn't, Skull Clamp is there's a design flaw here. This is an absolute monster card. I actually like this better than the One Ring. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards, equip 1. This is unfair when you're making all these goblin tokens. Like, basically, you're just drawing all the cards in the world. Metallic Mimic. All right, that should have been in the creature pile, but I put it in the artifact pile. No worries. It's kind of both. As Metallic Mimic enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Metallic Mimic is a chosen type in addition to its other types. Each other creature you control of the chosen type enters the battlefield with additional 1/1 counter on it. Ruby Medallion. I talk about mana ramp a lot. Mana ramp's important in a commander deck. There's not a lot of red mana ramp type cards. You know, like what I'm talking is creatures, right? Like the Birds of Paradise, the Bloom Tender, the Delighted Halfling, things like that. So I like to reduce the casting cost of my goblins. So Ruby Medallion really, really helps, especially in a mono red deck. Ether Vial, way to cheat my creatures out early. This works really, really well in a Goblin deck where the casting cost of the creatures is relatively low. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Ether Vial. Then you tap it. You may put a creature card with mana value equal to the number of charge counters on Ether Vial from your hand onto the battlefield. Basilisk Collar. Equipped creature has Death Touch and Lifelink. Great card. Phyrexian Altar. Bit more mana ramp. Sacrifice a creature. Add 1 mana of any color. Speaking of reducing the casting costs of things, the classic Urza's Incubator. You build a Typal Kinfolk Tribal type deck. You need one of these in the deck. It reduces the casting cost of creatures of the chosen type by 2. Smuggler's Copter. There was a time in the game where this card was a monster. It still works insanely well. It's got flying. Whenever Smuggler's Copter attacks or blocks, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Again, card draw is everything in Commander. More anthems. Banner of Kinship. As this artifact enters, choose a creature type. This artifact enters with a fellowship counter on it for each creature you control the chosen type. Creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1 for each fellowship counter on this artifact. Commander's Plate. Commander protection is everything, especially in this deck. This year, equipped creature gets +3/+3 and is protection for each color that's not in your commander's color identity. Obviously useless on a 5-color deck. In a 1-color deck, this card is just straight up unfair. More commander protection. Maybe the ultimate piece, the most common piece, Lightning Greaves. We have a Soul Ring, the best mana ramp card of all time. Remember talking about illegal cards? This should be banned. Like, honestly, this is actually my sole argument of why Mana Crypt should be legal. We have the Vanquisher's Banner, another creature anthem, and more card draw. And we have the Herald's Horn. All right, so those are our artifacts. Let's talk enchantments. A goblin card you need in your goblin deck, the Goblin Bombardment. Sacrifice a creature. Goblin Bombardment deals 1 damage to any target. Huge when you're making that many tokens. The Blood Moon, Mass Land Denial. Yes, we went there. One of the greatest red cards of all time in Commander, Underworld Breach. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. Stranglehold. Your opponents can't search libraries. Goodbye, Demonic Tutor. If an opponent would begin an extra turn, that player skips that turn instead. Huge card. Put that in your decks. Fiery Emancipation. If a source you control would deal damage to a permanent player, it deals triple that damage to that permanent player instead. And then we have Fable of the Mirror Breaker. It's a saga. For step 1, create a 2/2 red goblin shaman creature token with whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure token. You may discard for number 2, 2 cards if you do draw that many cards. And then you can exile the saga and have it return as the Reflection of Kiki Jiki. There we go. There are our enchantments. Let's talk sorceries and instants. Gamble. Insane Tutor. Search your library for a card. Put that card into your hand. Discard a card at random and shuffle. Vandal Blast. We want to destroy people's artifacts. Get yourself a Vandal Blast. You know you don't run enough of in your commander decks? Removal. Trust me on that. Bolt Wave. Bolt Wave deals 3 damage to each opponent. Chaos Warp. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of the library. If it's a permanent card, they put it onto the battlefield. This is so useful against an indestructible creature, right? Or if someone has a monster creature, like say they have Emrakul, the Promised End on the field, I promise you'll never regret. Whatever creature they're going to bring out is not going to be as strong as Emrakul. So Chaos Warp. Last Chance. Extra turn card. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. I'm okay with it. I'll take a chance. And then Lightning Bolt from the Fallout Secret Lair. Lightning Bolt deals 3 damage to any target. One of the most perfect cards ever created in Magic, period. We have a bunch of basic lands, but I want to show off these Phyrexian Oil Slicks because they are beautiful. I have some Lord of the Rings lands. I have some of these ones from Dominaria United in foil, the ones from Kamigawa, absolutely beautiful. another Phyrexian ones a lot of times. I take a lot of pride in the lands I fill decks up with, and I like to put my favorite lands, so those are my basic lands. But let's talk non-basic. By the way, there are 38 lands in this deck. In a monocolored deck, that is more than enough. The greatest commander land of all time, Command Tower. Can you imagine if this was a rare? This is on the reserve list. It'd be worth thousands of dollars. Add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. Mines of Moria. Mines of Moria enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a legendary creature. You can tap to add a red mana, and then you can exile 3 other cards from your graveyard, create 2 treasure tokens. You need this in any Kinfolk tribal deck you have. Trust me on that. Nyxos Shrine to Nyx. Tap it, add 1 to your mana pool. 2, choose a color. Add to your mana pool an amount of mana of that color equal to your devotion to that color. All right? This card is huge, not only in a tribal or Kinfolk deck, but especially in a mono or duo color deck. And a lot of times when you're building a tribal Kinfolk deck, that is going to be the case. So get yourself a Nyxos Shrine to Nyx, amazing card. Maze of Ith. Untap target attacking creature, prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to and dealt by that creature this turn. And then Tarnation Vista. Tarnation Vista enters the battlefield tapped. As it enters, choose a color. Add 1 mana of the chosen color, and then you pay 1 for each color among monocolored permanents you control. Add 1 mana of that color. So again, another great card. Works a little bit similar to Nyxos, but trust me, in a monocolor deck, in a dual color deck, in a Kinfolk deck, you're going to want this card. There's my Goblin deck. It's amazing. Couple pieces of metadata for you. I said it was a budget deck. Kind of say that tongue-in-cheek, $630.85, but I'm just fortunate enough to have a great collection. And honestly, the value of this deck is inflated by cards like the Goblin Wizard, $75, the Goblin Sharpshooter, $30, the Warren Instigator, $12, Commander's Plate, $35, all right? But it's $630.85. Total mana value of the deck, $162. You have any idea how fast this deck moves? I always say for a commander deck to be competitive, you want to be under a mana value of 200. This is way under. Within a couple of turns, this deck is running you right over, and Muxus is a monster. Now, Muxus itself has a little bit higher of a casting cost than I want, but I wanted to play with this commander. And again, the deck is going to move really, really fast. It is a monocolored deck, and the bracket info, it is technically automatically a bracket 4 because we have some mass land denial cards of Blood Moon and Magus of the Moon. We have 2 Game Changers, Underworld Breach, and Gamble, and there are 5 tutor cards. So, welcome to Budget Goblins. If you want to compare this to my Krenko deck, again, actually I'll have links to the deck lists for both those decks, the Krenko deck and the Muxus deck. You can decide which one you like better. And do me a favor. I love collecting. That's my favorite thing in the Magic the Gathering. But my other favorite thing, and then we're talking 1A and 1B or 1B and 1A, whatever you want to call it, is interacting with like-minded people like you. So do me a favor. Please, please, please go to my comments and give me some suggestions on my Goblin deck. Chances are I will take them. In fact, chances are by the time you see this video, obviously they're recorded and uploaded in advance. By the time you see this video, the deck list will have probably changed, because if I get a new Goblin, if I get a new suggestion, if I get a new card, I will make the change. My favorite thing in the world is to tinker with my decks. When I'm in my most private moments, that's what I'm doing. I'm playing with my deck. I'm tinkering with my deck. I'm altering my deck. I alter a lot of my decks every single day. It's the ultimate way to show my collection. Again, 57 commander decks. 57 might seem excessive, but you haven't seen nothing yet because the goal is 100. You can help me getting there by subscribing, commenting, sharing, saying positive things about the channel, and interacting with me. Thanks again for coming to Muscles and Magic Gathering, sharing what's honestly just a massive passion of mine. I appreciate you. I love you. And I will see you next episode.